Hello, a Better Lived Life crew. I am Christina, coach, combat vet, and community change agent. And today we are going to talk about alcohol. So, at the start of the pandemic, we all saw the jokes going around. You were either going to come out of this a chef or an alcoholic. Well, I'm not going to judge anyone for what we did in order to get through a very stressful and tough situation. What's more, I was definitely in the latter group. My alcohol consumption increased significantly during the pandemic. So let's discuss the process of cutting back and getting our health back on track. Despite what studies showed around the turn of the millennium that alcohol was good for you, red wine could make you live longer, those studies have all been pretty much well refuted at this point in time. There is no safe amount of alcohol to consume. Alcohol can increase your risk for multiple types of cancer. It interferes with our liver's ability to clean out other toxins. It can result in mental health issues, increase accidents. It increases inflammation. It decreases your immune system, making you more likely to get sick. And this is all before we even get to the levels required for it to be considered an addiction. I know there are people that want to jump in the comments already talking about how there are some groups that live longer and drink almost every day. Here's the complication with that argument. These individuals, when we look at them and the health benefit, what we see is that they are typically having one glass of red wine and they are having it with friends and family and actively engaging in conversation and bonding at that time. We now have so many studies showing that friends and family and belonging are as important to our long-term health as avoiding smoking. So it isn't so much the wine that is keeping them alive as it is the bonding and the conversation that takes place with the drinking. Let's be real. During the pandemic, we didn't increase our drinking while hanging out with friends and family and having a great time. It was a glass of wine or worse while binging on Netflix. We were bored, lonely, frustrated, feeling disconnected, and we numbed out. We were mourning lost opportunities, friends, families, hobbies, and our way of life. We self-medicated. While COVID will likely be with us for years, and we may have more times where it's best to social distance again, we are hopefully never going back to isolating for any more than perhaps the week when you're sick or an immediate family member is sick. As we settle back into a normal life, and we've had some time to decompress, many of us are realizing that it's time to reevaluate our drinking. Many of us decreased our drinking as we went back to work and got to meet up with friends and family again. For some of us, it needs to be a more conscious decision. Do you know how much you were drinking before the pandemic? What was the peak? Where are you now? I honestly don't remember what I was drinking pre-pandemic. However, it was likely more than I think it was 3 per week that was recommended as max for women, if I'm remembering correctly back then. During the pandemic, I'm just going to say it was a lot higher. I was dealing with a lot of frustration and anger and stress at work. And I was also dealing with some family stress. And I drank to calm myself and stop my spinning thoughts. Whenever I have a doctor's appointment, the nurse always asks me about my drinking. I have always been honest. At my peak, the doctor straight up asked me if I was concerned about my consumption. I told her not yet. Let's see what it looks like at the end of the pandemic. We both knew that alcohol consumption was up for a lot of people, and it was a coping mechanism. The question was, would it be easy to walk away from? Both of my grandmothers were alcoholics. Being honest with myself about my consumption is super important to me, as well as watching for signs of addiction. During the pandemic, I would take a day or two off here and there and just check for signs of addiction. For those of you that don't know, you can be psychologically addicted without being physically addicted. Side note. My body never reached physical addiction, but I did notice that I spent way too much time thinking about alcohol, especially on days I wasn't drinking. It doesn't help that I'm a sugar junkie, and a sweet alcohol is a double whammy for my ADHD dopamine seeking brain. I knew that I could easily slip into addiction if I wasn't careful. I think it was the start of 2023, though honestly, time has been a bit blurry for me since the start of the pandemic. I think it was early 2023 though. I decided to take a 2-week hiatus from drinking just to prove I could. That went fine. Then I tried a month where I didn't buy any, basically pairing it with my financial goals. I finished up what was in my home, and other than a beer that a friend bought, that was it for the month. A few months later, I tried 4 weeks, just kind of to see if I could. After each of these, I went back to drinking, but I was mentally reinforcing for myself that I didn't need it. I could function just fine without it, and it was good to give my liver time to heal. Starting in September of last year, I decided to try something different. For years, I've called myself a bad vegetarian, now a bad vegan, as I don't bring meat into my home, and I mostly avoid it when I'm out. However, I don't burn my willpower avoiding it if it's like literally right in front of me. But I minimize the temptation by keeping my distance from it. Since I'm already used to this idea and this way of living, I decided to basically do something similar with alcohol. I still finished out the year often having more than is recommended, as I finished off the party supplies from my birthday and I was gifted wine for Christmas. But it was a lot less than I had been drinking at peak. Since finishing off the Christmas gifts, I've had one weekend event, one vacation visiting family, and a drink or two at my aunt's house when I visit her. This is a massive reduction in what I was drinking at peak, and I won't have another vacation for a while. Special events out should be few and far between, and I only go to my aunt's house about once a month. So my consumption will likely continue to decrease even more in the future. Hi, someone wanted to jump in the shot. So, is this sustainable long term? I don't know. There's a part of me that likes the idea of becoming a complete teetotaler. I want to live an extremely healthy, long life. But there's also a really big part of me that likes the sugar and the relaxing effect around friends. It's a push and pull. If you are looking at or drinking and thinking maybe it's time to reel it in, know that you aren't alone. There are tons of us out there changing our habits in order to live a better lived life. My very first step in limiting my drinking was simply ensuring that I drank a glass of water between every glass and having smaller servings. This way I had to slow down, and when it was time for another drink, I really had to think about if it was worth getting up to get more. When I started using some intermittent fasting techniques, I decided that I would stop eating after 5 p.m. unless I was out doing something special. That helped me to cut back on drinking as well. Now I'm reinforcing the idea by watching informational videos and reading articles about the damage that alcohol does. So I used techniques that have worked for me in the past regarding other temptations. I spaced out and decreased my drinking. I took breaks to remind myself that I don't need alcohol. I paired drinking with other parts of my identity, like fasting and bad vegan. Experiment. See what works for you. And of course, if you try these ideas, try your own ideas, and you still can't cut back to where you would like to be, it is absolutely acceptable to ask for help. We all need help with certain parts of our life. If this is where you need help, the good news is there are lots of resources out there. Talk to your doctor, talk to a therapist, a family member, a friend. There are medicines, programs, support groups, books, all sorts of things out there. You are absolutely not alone in this. You can cut back or stop drinking altogether if that's what you want. Almost half of the world's population doesn't drink. You still have plenty of good company. So what's worked for you in the past for breaking out of unhealthy habits? Share in the comments below so we can all have some new tools in our tool belt. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, go forth and do great things.